My husband and I became millionaires at 31 and 32 by being 100% on the same page with money. I talk to a lot of medical professionals about money, and most couples, whether it's in a marriage or a long term partnership, would say that they're on the same page with money, especially if you do things like have a conversation a couple of times a month about where you're spending money and where things are allocated. But the reality is, being on the same page with money and being on the same team in a way that creates wealth, especially if you're someone who wants to create wealth quickly, requires something way deeper than that. I'm going to go through the 5 things my husband and I have done to actually win with money as a team and allow us to build wealth quickly over time. If you implement these 5 things, I'm 100% confident that your financial trajectory will be faster and better because you did. The first is creating a vision of what we actually wanted financial independence to look like and what age we each wanted to get there. There are a bunch of different ways to do this. I've heard this referred to as a dream date, but essentially you should sit down with your partner and figure out, hey, if we actually did money well, what does this look like for you? When do you stop working completely? Do you even want to? Right? Do you want to reduce hours instead? Are you hoping for the ability to take sabbaticals but still do some version of work all the way up till the day you drop dead? If you don't, if you want the classic retirement, do you want that at age 65, 67? Or do you want that at 55? Do you plan on, traveling the world and seeing really beautiful, luxurious places? Or do you plan on staying home, right? These things matter because they change the budget or what you need to look at financially pretty dramatically. Also, it's helpful to know on the front end if one of you plans to be a hermit in retirement and the other one thinks that you're going to see 400 countries before you die, right? But regardless, having these kinds of conversations allow you to get on the same page of what the dream is. Do we want a beach house? Do we want to have a lake house? Do we want to be able to travel? Do we want to leave money to kids or grandchildren or charitable organizations? All of these conversations will allow you to be on the big picture page financially, and that is what allows you to move the needle towards making it happen. Now, a lot of people do this step, and it's an important step, but it doesn't actually get you anywhere. It's not finite, it's not actionable, and all it does is create a vision board for where you'd like to go without a path taking you towards the dream. Now, the vision board is key, right? Without the vision, the people perish. This is important, but it's only the very first step. The next things that you do are the things that actually move the needle. Once you have the vision, it's time to get into the numbers. Decide what percent of your gross annual income you're going to be investing as a household. Now, there should be some math behind this decision. It shouldn't be arbitrary. And honestly, it shouldn't be decided based on what you think is comfortable or what you feel like is possible. I like this little breakdown. It's from the Financial Independence Retire Early community. I believe it actually came from Rob Berger, but it breaks down very simple math relating what your percent investing rate is compared to when you can full blown retire. Now, we said that's not everyone's vision, right? Not everyone wants to retire fully early, but everyone should have the ability to be fully retired in their mid 60s simply so that if your health doesn't allow you to continue to work, you're not destitute in your elderly years. Now, a 20% investing rate is fairly standard for getting you to that basic retirement. And so if you and your partner are sitting down and you're like, all we want is to retire in our mid 60s, we're fine to work full time until then, we're not really big on generational wealth or charitable impact, we're okay if we can just take a few trips a year and keep our same lifestyle, then maybe your household decision is to invest 20% of your gross income. If you want something different than that, you want to be able to retire early or reduce hours or make a huge impact on your family or your family tree, then you need to be looking at a higher investing rate than that. In this example, if you're 30 and you decide, I'd like to be financially independent or totally able to retire in 20 years by the time I'm 50, you can look and see, well, then that puts me at an investing rate somewhere between 40 to 45% of my income. We had these conversations very early. What percent of income are we going to invest as a household and why? Because we first started with a vision. So we knew exactly why it is we were doing what we were doing. We knew our vision was big, and that was our motivation for then picking the next number that we could execute consistently. Once you do that, you then need to decide what are the strategies we want to employ to increase our household income. Now, this might seem silly because maybe you're thinking that not everyone's income needs to increase, but I would 100% beg to differ. Your household income has to increase over time. It's the only way to keep pace with inflation. But if your goal is to build wealth or to have a life bigger than standard, increasing your income is one of the easiest ways to do it. It allows you to create that high investing rate without having to have a super frugal lifestyle where you never see the inside of a restaurant. So you need to decide, how will we do this? Is it something where we create a negotiation cadence at our current jobs in order to increase our household income? Is one or both of us willing to change jobs to increase income? Do we want to create a side hustle? Is there something we love and enjoy that fits into our lifestyle? Do we want to invest in real estate to create cash flow that way? There are a million options. You have to decide what works and what's going to not work for you guys based on your lifestyle or hassle factor, right? For example, we've owned short-term rentals, which are wonderful from a tax standpoint, but we've also invested in a private equity real estate syndication that was 100% passive. And we're in a season of life with littles. And so it's lovely to have fully true passive income that you don't have to do anything for, you don't have to talk to an Airbnb guest for. And so maybe in our season, we might decide something a little bit different than if we were in a season where we didn't have kids or we were empty nesters. Our aptitude for going out and doing some extra stuff might look a little bit different. The key is you have to find ways to do this. If you sit together and you're kind of racking your brains and you just don't see any opportunities, the problem probably lies in your mindset. And so one of the things that's helped us is also simultaneously deciding we're going to be people that stretch ourselves. So we're going to be people that take the real estate investing course, that go to the personal development conference, that listen to the podcast so that we learn what opportunities are out there for us and expand our version of what's possible. It's actually really difficult, coming from someone who's been married for 10 years, to be inside a marriage where one person is really committed to growth and expansion of self and the other person is really not. So if you can do that together, if you can decide as a couple that part of us expanding our income is going to be us committing to expansion of ourselves, of our skill set, of our mindset, then the things align, right? And all of a sudden, things that maybe didn't feel as possible to you before become very, very possible. The fourth thing we did was set goals around net worth and passive income with timelines associated with each. This is the SMART goal acronym that you hear about often, but without objective numbers and specific timelines, it's very difficult to set a goal like, oh, we want to be millionaires, and actually make that come to fruition because it doesn't give you enough tangible to then backtrack and say, for that to be true, what happens now? If you have a very specific actionable goal, like for example, we want to be millionaires in 5 years, you can look at a compound interest calculator and very quickly say, based on where we're starting, what do we have to invest on an annual basis to make that happen? Right? And then your 5 year goal just became an actionable 1 year goal, which then becomes a monthly to do. That is how you actually create change over time. But if you don't have goals around net worth and passive income or alternative income sources, those things don't just magically come to fruition. This should be on paper and it should be done with your partner and reviewed on an annual basis so that you guys can continue to move forward towards, again, that big vision at the end and not get stuck in the weeds. The last and the most obvious thing is to have a cash flow system that works. I put this last because a lot of people do this and they think it's enough. They have a household budget, they know where money goes on a, monthly basis and they say, "Okay, we're on the same page with money." But if you haven't first decided the vision, you don't know what it's going to take from an investing standpoint or a personal development standpoint or an income growth standpoint to create the life you're both after, then there's no way for you to create a budget that does anything other than make sure you're not a sinking ship, right? Like being able to say we don't spend more than we earn, that's great. But that doesn't build wealth. What builds wealth is all the stuff that came up before this. And so once you have that, once you have the vision, once you've made the big picture decisions, then you can go in and you can create a cash flow system that makes the big goals happen. But without the big goals, all you're doing is making sure that you don't take on water, so to speak. This is an important step, but if this is the only step you're doing, you're not on the fast track to building wealth.